everyone. Welcome to the May 26th Town Board meeting. If you would all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please remain standing while we observe a moment of silence for the men and women serving in our armed forces? Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to point out the exits, the fire exits, 2 in the rear of the room and 1 up in the front. The Cicero Town Board acknowledges the importance of full public participation in all public hearings and therefore urges all who wish to address those in attendance to utilize the microphones located at the front of the room. At this time, please shut off your cell phones. Be sure to speak into the microphone to enable all to hear. I'd like to make a motion that all actions taken tonight are type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act unless otherwise determined.
Second.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Ms. Zambrano?
Yes.
Mr. Corl?
Yes.
Ms. Boyke?
Yes. I would like to also have the town board minutes approved from May 12th meeting. Second.
Can we have a discussion on that,
Sure.
Supervisor? On page 16, I spoke with Tracy earlier. Relative to the issuing the note for the $150,000, when the motion was made, it didn't incorporate a proposed resolution that was circulated amongst the board. And my vote was based on the fact that that was not included in the resolution. So I don't have a problem with the proposed resolution that was added after. I think, Tracy, you spoke with counsel, and that was added because of your discussions with the attorney.
Correct.
The only thing I'd like redacted is the under the first whereas or the second whereas clause that has a sentence about for which an insufficient amount was made in the budget for the current fiscal year. I would just ask for that to be redacted, and for the first result paragraph for which an insufficient provision was made in the annual town budget for the current fiscal year. If the board members don't have any objection, I'd like that to be redacted.
Why? There was insufficient money allocated.
Well, first of all, the resolution, the whole thing was not adopted or incorporated or even referenced on the motion, and second of all, it gives the implication that during the budget process there wasn't a sufficient amount of made, and it was based on the fact that there was unforeseen circumstances in which there was a deficiency. So that would be my only request.
That's usually why a budget notice is done, is because there isn't enough money in the budget.
Correct.
So to say that there wasn't enough money in the budget is why we're doing it.
Correct. First of all, my objection was because that proposed resolution was never referenced, but if it has to be in there, I was asking for those 2 lines to be stricken. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it. It's fairly lengthy. It's about 3 or 4 whereas clauses and a couple of resolves. First of all, it probably shouldn't be in there at all because it wasn't ever referenced or mentioned in the actual minutes or during the meeting.
I thought the board had a copy of the resolution. Everybody had a copy of the resolution they voted on, as far as I know.
Well, the motion was made to authorize the borrowing of the $150,000 budget note from M&T for the 1 year to be put in the sewer fund for emergency repairs. That was, I think, the actual verbiage of the motion itself, rather than incorporating or referencing some outside proposed resolution which was circulated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess we're just talking semantics. The only thing I can tell you is I'll talk to the bank and see if they're comfortable with removal of that. As I say, the reason that you adopt that resolution is because there is sufficient monies in the budget, and so you borrow on a budget note. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to do that.
Correct.
You can't just borrow, take out a budget note for the sake of borrowing money. There's got to be a reason for it, and the reason for it is stated in the resolution. If you want to re-adopt the resolution, you can do that. But as far as taking out the reason for the borrowing, I'm not so sure you can do that legitimately.
Okay.
But if you want to hold it, I'll talk to the bank and see if they're comfortable with having that. They're the ones that are going to issue the note.
When will that be done? Do you have an idea?
You can do it once after the resolution is adopted. You can borrow the money anytime you want.
Well, why? I mean, I'm not uncomfortable with this verbiage, this language. Okay?
No?
Are
It's
you?
insufficient
No.
funds?
It says insufficient funds, I mean, that's what it was.
Well, first, like I said, first of all, it was never incorporated. Second of all, that verbiage, there was unforeseen circumstances in which why there was not funds budgeted for the sewer projects that came up.
Mr. Corl, there was a deficit at the beginning of the year, though.
Could you speak up?
There was a deficit at the beginning, at the end of the closing of the year, there was a deficit of $25,000. So it wasn't insufficient. I mean, if they appropriate the same dollar amount for this year as they did last year, and they started out with a deficit, then you add that much more onto what you originally would budget, and they didn't do that.
And we had that discussion about that deficit at the last meeting. I say the language stands.
Second.
Well, I think the motion on the floor already is to pass it as is, and it was seconded.
Well, let's vote on it then.
And who seconded it?
I did.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Ms. Zimbriano?
Yes.
Mr. Corl?
Yes, with the exception of the resolution. Well, with the resolution, I'll vote yes, with the exception of the resolution that was added after the discussion occurred on the page 16, where the resolution, the issuance of the $150,000.
Ms. Boyke?
Yes.